Crytek just finished their update 1.9 developer stream, and although it's not the biggest content drop, it is a quality of life and service update. And so if you watch that Operation Health video, there are a lot of welcome changes coming in this update. We have bug fixes, we have an update about monetization with another one coming later this week, and we also have some map changes we will talk about, some server improvements, gameplay changes, weapon balance. There's a lot of stuff in here, so let's just get into it. The developers said that this update will be one of the most extensive bug fix updates that they've pushed, and the patch notes will have a very long list of bugs that they have gone in and fixed. So look out for those when they drop on the test server. But one of the most significant changes is this player movement update, which should fix some instances of desync. They said they're not done here, they're still working on things, but this will at least help, and it is the first time I can remember, at least in recent memory, that there has actually been an update here. So there should be some smoother and less forceful movement correction on the server, and hopefully that means there will be less frustrating situations. The devs also mentioned there are new summons being added to the game, so if you already grinded through most of those summons that are already added to the game, there will be new quests coming, and they hinted that there will be quest lines added later on, which should add a little more depth to these summons. One small change is that quest tracking no longer confirms kills. Before, if you were tracking a kill specific quest, you could go into your map and see if you got like a questionable kill from certain ranges, and it would count up by 1. So they've changed that to where it can't be abused. As I mentioned, they also talked about monetization a little bit. That blog, which is now a video, is supposed to drop later this week. I'll probably talk about that whenever it goes live. But for now, the devs have at least responded and said that they know that we want transparency here, and although they do need to add monetization systems to keep the game sustainable and growing for years to come, they are trying to add some player choice as part of these systems, and you can see that a little bit in the black market. So let's talk about that. The black market is a new way to purchase discounted legendary Blood Bond content, and it has highlighted store items available once it goes live. In the black market, there are 3 vendors available with their own theme. Each vendor has limited stock, all items are visible, and items will be unlocked in a random order. What this means for you, the player, is that if there are certain Blood Bond skins that you want, you can go in the black market and they might be included in a bundle. And in the black market, there is a 20% discount on these bundles. You can also buy items individually. You don't have to buy them as part of a bundle. And if there are any items that you don't like on offer, you can re-roll them, but it costs 25 Blood Bonds. I don't see most people messing with the black market too much, but it is nice that you at least have some agency over how you want to spend your Blood Bonds. So I think the system is okay, but we'll see how it develops over time. Okay, and then we have a lot of level design changes. It's too much to go over in this type of video, but the major changes are that King Snake Mine is now open, and here's some images of what that looks like. They did say the mine was designed with camping in mind. They don't want it to be like a camp fest or like, just something that you dread going into, but they acknowledged it is a mine, so it's going to be pretty close quarters in there. Also, some other updates. Alice Farm got some new pathing and access to that weird roof, which you can see here. And Livestock Farm has that weird hole on the outside, and that's been made into a more viable play space, and so it's not just like a hole that you're kind of trapped in. It's something you can move in and out of more easily. In addition, Crematorium got some more changes. They added a new entry point if you're coming from the forest, and those top areas that you can climb into, they're more viable to use as a sort of area to fight out of. Port Rica also saw some pretty good improvements in my opinion. They added stairs where there were previously either no access points or just ladders to get up. So it's easier if you get a kill in that large building and need to push up, you can actually use stairs, and it's not this awkward kind of vertical fight that it usually turned into. Stillwater Bend got a new entrance, and they removed that ladder that goes underground. I almost killed myself there the other day, but that is now gone, and now there is an armory under there, kind of like the armory in Lumber on the DeSalle map. Okay, and then Salter's Pork also got a new underground entrance, and this is to help anyone that spawns in this field area not get pinched. I've been killed here so many times in this open field, so I'm glad to see that there is this new entrance. It'll be interesting to see how it influences fights at Salter's Pork. And then over on DeSalle, obviously Kingsnake Mine is open. We already talked about that. But also Fort Bolden's bridge got a makeover, and some of the area surrounding Fort Bolden got some improvements. Okay, a lot of people hate DeSalle because the spawn fights on that west side are just broken sometimes. You spawn and you get sniped and you die. They have gone in and changed that to where now the west and east spawns on DeSalle have a minimum distance for teams to spawn in. This does not remove spawn fights from the map, but it does make it to where they are more fair, so you will have time to respond. If you do get caught in one of these spawn fights, there will at least be some distance for you to find cover, shoot back, whatever. But they also adjusted some of the spawns in the top right corner, so now there are 3 new spawns there, and they took away 2 kind of problematic spawns that just kind of left you trapped. I don't know that everyone will notice this change, but I think it is an important one. Also, at long last, we got a wellness check, and Dennis is alive. The next section they talked about was technical features, and this was largely about server performance and server stability, so I will try to break this down. Obviously, I'm not an expert on servers, but there are some important changes. So, the devs acknowledge that there are some troubles with the server performance and stability, and much of that is because it is a global game, and we'll get into that in a second. But the main takeaway from this section is that they have done stuff on the back end to make servers more reliable, so you should disconnect less if that's been a problem for you. And also we will talk about ping, which is its own little section. But the main goal was server stability improvements. And so I've already mentioned in a different video that they are reducing the match timer to 45 minutes. And the devs explained that only about 1% of all games last longer than 40 minutes. So this isn't a huge change affecting people. But this change will reduce load on servers, which means we should see some more server performance. I'm curious to see if we will actually notice that on the test server where less people actually play the game. But on live servers, we should see some changes there. Alright, let's talk about ping limit, because when they announced it, it was a pretty controversial issue, but it seems like they've thought it out pretty well. So the goal for the ping limit is to minimize the exploitive use of high ping in different regions, while also still allowing players to play with their friends. So if you are playing alone, you will be forced into the server region where your ping is under 225. However, to preserve the ability to play with your friends across different regions, which pretty common I think, that limit does not apply to pre-made groups. You do get a message saying that server stability might be pretty iffy for you if you have high ping and you're playing with a friend, but for the most part I think this will at least lessen ping abuse from people hopping server regions. But they showed what this will look like, so blue font, golden background are the optimal regions, orange font, gray background for medium regions, and red font grayed out for locked regions. So I imagine I won't be playing on Asian servers anytime soon. And just to address something they mentioned later in the stream, if you have lag spikes, there is not a constant check within the match. So say you normally play at 60 ping, but then your neighbor turns on like whatever and your internet goes down. I don't know your setup, but basically if your ping exceeds that 225 limit, it won't automatically kick you out of the match. They have allowed for lag spikes to happen. So if your connection is not the most stable, but you are at least close to a region, you can still play the game. You won't be kicked for having a lag spike. And for players that are always over that ping limit, 225, you will still be able to connect to the best region for yourself. So anyone with internet that's just not the best, you can still play the game. You will always have a region open to you. Okay, and then let's talk about the team detail changes. And this is the screen you see after a match where you can kind of see what teams you interacted with, what teams you killed. So they've made some improvements here through the use of color coding, if you've noticed a theme. They did an example, which I'm not even going to pretend that I could walk you through, but basically here's what you need to know. You now know who interacted with you and your teammate, and that is a color-coded system now. Basically, you have more information at the end of a match to understand who you engaged with and when. So now actions have timestamps, and you can figure out when you killed someone, when someone killed you, just by looking at this information and hovering over it. The devs said it is pretty intuitive once you start using it. Okay, another thing they adjusted was the weapon audio at a distance. So you might have noticed that gunshots at a distance are hard to tell exactly what's going on. You know someone's shooting over in a distance, but you don't really know what is happening. So what they've done is changed it to where now we have more readability if a gunshot is indoors or outdoors. Interior shots will be more muffled, whereas exterior shots will have a longer audio tail. Let me just show you that real quick. Basically, this is only for readability at a distance. You already kind of had this system up close, but this will now apply to longer ranges, which is great. Okay, so here's the thing. Centennial balance changes and terminus balance changes. I've already made a video on those guns, and now I have to revisit them, I think. So for the centennial, there is an increased rate of fire across the board by 20%. And that's with shoulder aim, aim down sight, and levering an iron repeater. It is across the board 20% faster to shoot. The devs said that should make the Centennial more viable, and I tend to agree because that's kind of the biggest grievance with the Centennial, is it's a bit clunky. And then onto the Terminus, they increased the reload speed by 20% and increased the rate of fire by 5%. Everything else about it is still the same, but it is not as clunky, and I think that will go a long way in making it a more appealing option as far as shotguns go, because as we talked about in that video, it can already benefit from a number of traits, and if you actually level it up, it's pretty good. But alone, it shouldn't be as clunky. And then the devs also teased that a new long ammo pistol is happening, as well as released this change to the uppercut. So what this change does is it slightly reduces the damage at close range, which means it won't be able to one hit down a player that's already missing a health bar at certain ranges. And the dev said that's a reduction of about like 10 meters from what it could do normally, but it retains its damage more over distance. And so what that means is it could down a player that has 50 health from further away. If that's confusing, here's how they explained it. Basically, the uppercut was too good in multiple situations. Now it is more of a niche weapon as a pocket rifle that needs accuracy, and it's less reliable for any situation you run into. I don't think this change will affect how much you see it in 5 and 6 star lobbies, but it does at least open the option for other pistols that might be more well-rounded. Like the Spitfire. Okay, and then another exciting change, there was a slug balance pass. So what they did is they reduced the effective range for medium barrel length variants, Slate, Caldwell. So the slugs will do less damage at a distance with those guns. You have to be more precise to hit the upper torso, and they reduced the spare ammo count. Thank God. Not much to say about this, but slugs were kind of broken. Definitely abused. Okay, and then they changed poison ammo, which I think is pretty good. So now it's more in line with incendiary ammo. It will have the same base damage as normal bullets. It will just have that poison status effect. Not a huge change, but it does make weapons like the spark suppressed more viable with poison ammo. Alright, and then they also talked about some melee weapon changes, and those were grouped into two categories: stamina based changes and damage based changes. So let's talk about the stamina category. For the heavy knife and the saber, both of those weapons can perform one extra heavy attack. And then for the damage based changes, the machete now deals extra damage on heavy attack, and it can kill armoreds in 2 heavy strikes. And they changed talon variants on weapons like the Romero talon, the Vetterli talon, but they replaced it to be similar to a combat axe. However, it can only have 2 heavy attacks possible before you'll have to recharge your stamina. So talon variants saw a pretty good buff here. They were kind of in a weird spot before where they couldn't do as much as you want them to, but now they are much more similar to the combat axe and a pretty good variant to have. And they also talked a little bit about some future changes in the Q&A section. So the anti-camping team play mechanic is still in the works, but it's not in this update. The Lamat bug and the single shot bug will be fixed in this update. 2D replay is still work in progress, but it has no updates yet. The next gen console version and DLSS are still work in progress, and as I mentioned, the patch notes will have an extensive list. It couldn't cover everything in this stream. And then we can talk about the legendary content super quickly. As part of the Swig of Fortune, there is the knife, the last word, which is the broken bottle. It looks really great. There's a Winfield Terminus skin, which looks okay. There is the Red Martin, which is a Winfield 1873 skin. It looks pretty good. There is a new legendary hunter, the bartender Eddie Davies. We already talked about that a little bit. There is the Berthier, sorry French people, called the Cassius, and that is going to be in this update. There's a new Spectre compact skin and a Vetterli marksman skin called the Swan Song. It has frogs on it, and the frogs look kind of cool. And then fan favorite, the Vetterli Silencer, got a new legendary skin called Fate's Whisper, and that will be available in the black market. I'm not sure this is the skin people were hoping for, but it is nice to have one. There is also one more new legendary hunter called Hawkshaw Jack. He has gloves on that look pretty cool, and that is all I will say about him. So my thoughts on the update: it was kind of fortunate to do that Operation Health video on the eve of update 1.9, it seems, because this update does seem like a response to a lot of that frustration that we already talked about last week. I think the majority of the player base is willing to at least get less content for now, as long as Crytek is working on bug fixes, server stability, game improvements. And with update 1.9, it seems like that's exactly what they're doing. So hopefully update 1.9 puts Hunt Showdown in the right direction. There is still a lot of work to do. I'm hoping there aren't any new bugs in this update, but we will see in the test server. And I'm thinking that Crytek will be very careful about sending this one out, because it is a quality of life and service update. I think there will be a portion of the community that is disappointed by the content on offer, but overall I think 1.9 will fix a lot of grievances with the game, and those map changes look like they will change some of those frustrating areas. Hopefully that means there will be a happier player base, and we'll see what that does for the health of the community. So personally, I'm excited, but let me know, what do you think about this update? Are you disappointed by the lack of content, or are you totally fine waiting a little bit longer just so that we can have bug fixes and performance improvements? The monetization video should be later this week or sometime next week, so be sure to subscribe for that breakdown. But until the next video, goodbye.